We all have a few movies that we grew up on and just watched over and over again as kids. Most people from my generation could probably damn near quote The Lion King or Finding Nemo line for line. And I think it's very important to pass down traditions to ensure that our childhood memories live on in future generations. So yes, I will absolutely force my spawn to watch the movies I grew up on for entirely sentimental reasons. And before someone calls Child Protective Services on me, one, I don't even have any kids at this moment, so this is all hypothetical. And two, I'm not gonna pull some robot chicken shit and strap my kids into a booster seat and physically make them watch these classics. These movies are just gonna so happen to accidentally come on when my kids are in the mood to watch something. And the first movie that will be a prerequisite for my future children to view is The Land Before Time. And I have such a personal connection to this film, A, because it's just a great kids movie, and B, because this was actually the only VHS that my grandmother owned. So every time I would stay over my grandparents' house, it was just The Land Before Time being played on loop. And you'd think that after a while, this would get boring for me and I'd perhaps start to grow tired of this movie, but you'd be very wrong. I have never got sick of watching The Land Before Time, and hopefully my kids won't either. I'm also pretty sure the scene where Littlefoot's mother died was the first time a movie made me cry. I mean, talk about a heart-wrenching moment. Screw Sharptooth. All my homies hate Sharptooth. And if you're a real one, you do too. Sharptooth was an absolute menace of a villain. I mean, what kind of father would I be if I prevent my kids from experiencing such a great antagonist? Now, as for all of the straight-to-DVD sequels of The Land Before Time, we can probably skip those, but the original from '88 is an absolute must-watch. For my second prerequisite, future children, I hope you're taking notes, we're actually going to dip back into the prehistoric well because I'm 100% making my spawn watch Dinosaur. And I actually made an entire video about why this is a forgotten Disney classic. Feel free to check that video out if you haven't. But the sentimental value I have with this film largely comes from the fact that Aladar was my first Halloween costume. In fact, I still have that Aladar Halloween onesie in my closet somewhere. So not only will they be watching Dinosaur, my kids will have the option of being the titular dinosaur. But I also just think this is a quintessential children's movie for how rich the film is thematically. I think it introduces some important concepts such as family and death in really helpful and approachable ways, so I believe there's a lot for children to take away from this film, and it just so happens to also be a baller Halloween costume. Just saying. The Incredibles was yet another staple of my childhood, and I think I can comfortably say that it is my favorite animated film of all time, so it is definitely getting added to the list. A few years ago, I watched every Pixar movie during the pandemic because, well, I was bored, and I wanted to rank all of Pixar properly because, well, I'm a nerd. And when I finished The Incredibles, it was so good that I just hit restart on the film and watched it again with absolutely no break in between. Suffice to say that The Incredibles came out on top of my Pixar rankings, but I find this to be such a great film because unlike some other movies that I used to love as a kid, even as I get older, I still love The Incredibles. In fact, as I've matured, I've started appreciating different things about this film that went straight over my head as a kid. And to grow alongside a film and have its meaning evolve alongside you is just a really cool experience that I want my kids to also have. So they are absolutely going to be watching The Incredibles. Syndrome is also just such an iconic villain. Definitely expect to get a Psychology of Syndrome style video at some point in the future. Next up, we have the first movie I was ever obsessed with, Kung Fu Panda. And one of the first videos I ever published on this channel was about how awesome this film is. And while the audio quality of that video isn't great, shout out to my upstairs neighbors who have a fucking breakdance routine every time I try to record, I still stand by everything I said in that video. At its core, it's a film about accepting yourself and embracing your flaws as strengths. and the things that make you special. And this is such a beautiful message for kids, wrapped up in a kung fu-filled, action-packed movie. And I can vividly remember that I watched the trailer for this film so many times before it came out that I was literally quoting certain lines before characters could even say them. My parents thought I had developed clairvoyance or something. It was wild. But yes, I will be teaching my future children how to perform the whooshy finger hold, and that's just the way it is. And for my last entry on this list, I gotta throw in Flushed Away. And I know what you're thinking. Flushed Away was kind of a box office dud that had very little staying impact. And maybe the rest of the world feels this way, but for me, it left a major mark. You see, as a kid, I had a very finicky portable DVD player, and for some reason, Flushed Away was one of the only DVDs I owned that it would actually play without constantly skipping or freezing. I don't know what my Flushed Away disc was made out of, but it was simply built different. So almost every road trip I went on, Flushed Away came with me, which means this got the Land Before Time treatment of being played on loop all throughout my childhood, and I also just think it's super underrated in all honesty. The voice acting is incredible across the board. You have Hugh Jackman, Kate Winslet, Sir Ian McKellen, and Andy Serkis just absolutely killing it. And while it may not be an extraordinary film like The Incredibles or Kung Fu Panda, I think it is simply too precious of a memory to allow to be flushed away. Well, there you have it, a few films that I will 100% force my spawn to watch. And shout out to my girlfriend for giving me the idea to make this video. I bet you didn't expect to ever have to watch Flushed Away again, huh? Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to drop a like or subscribe. And in the comments, let me know, what movies do you plan to or may have already forced your spawn to watch? Until next time, peace.